Scientology could be called, well, you could call it a religion of religions.
Howdy everybody, and welcome to the Indie Scientology podcast. I'm your host Andy Nolch, the Space Cowboy, and I've got another briefing for you about my experience with the justice system, the legal system, the system that you go to when you've been a naughty adult. This is part 4, and there's so much more to go. As I'm doing these, I remember more things, and it just keeps on going on. But I just want to say, these briefings and stuff, you're getting the truth, and I'm willing to tell you the truth because that's all I am. I'm just walking ball of truthness. That's all I stand for, and that's why when I change my opinions, I change my opinions, and I don't say, oh, certain people follow me because they think I'm an independent Scientologist or something like that, so I better not say that. Or certain people think this, so I better not say that. I just say, no, I'm telling you what the truth is. And where the truth leads me, that's where I go. Because I think that certain people, they get themselves squished into a corner, and it's usually when they're selling something, like they're an author of a book or something like that, and they've developed a fan base, and they might have a YouTube channel. They've developed a fan base tailoring to a certain thing, and if they discovered some new information, they wouldn't really start saying it because they don't want to piss off their audience. Well, I'm telling you, with me and my briefings, I'm here to piss you off. I'm here to push your buttons. I'm here to say what the truth is. I'm not intentionally trying to piss you off or anything. I'm just telling you what the damn truth is, right? And that's where I'm going. So if certain people are like, oh, I thought Andy was like this, or I thought Andy was like that, no, life isn't that simple. It's not that perfect and stuff. And I'm willing to say stuff that will lose me audiences, right? I'm willing to say stuff that will annoy my audiences and stuff. And that's why I guess my stuff is so bizarre, because I say one thing one minute and another thing the next. And it's just like, yeah, because the truth isn't just like pigeoned into one side. I'm saying everything, you know what I mean? Because now I'm only really half a Scientologist and stuff, and I know a lot of stuff that really challenges Scientologists. So I'm like, with this YouTube channel, I'm like pissing off previous fans, because the way this whole podcast started was that it was like all about Scientology is cool and good, and the church is corrupt, and the whole independent Scientology free zone idea. But now I'm sort of heading away from that, and like I'm willing to say, no, I don't really agree with that and stuff. So with me, you have to understand, with me, that's what I'm trying to say, you just get the truth. And my opinions change on things as I find out new information. And that's what this podcast is all about. And I think everyone should be like that. I don't think people should go into these boxes of thought and boxes of I am this and you're stuck being in this, because that's not where the truth is. Anyway, I'm just basically saying that I am like, as a marketable product, I'm really shit. Because the way how it works when you're coming to market something like a YouTube channel or a podcast or something is you say, this is my podcast, these are my audiences, and I'm going to deliver content relating to that. Whereas I'm saying, this is my podcast, oh no, my podcast is sort of changing, this is my audience, oh well, my audience is sort of changing, oh I'm offending my audience, blah blah blah, because I'm just going where the truth is. That's all that matters. Anyway, so back to this long briefing about my experience with the legal system. Now, I want to mention how the cops raid a house. And what they do is they come in the early morning, so like around 7 a.m, because they know people will be home then, because if they come at 12 o'clock, people are probably going to be at work. Because they're coming to arrest a person or to just raid the house to find evidence for their court case. So that's why they go in and raid a house. what they do is they meet up at some location like not far from the house, and then they get ready or whatever. And they probably the day before they meet up at work, and they already have it planned what they're going to do the next day with the raid. But they meet up at some location just near the house. Then they all drive to the house or the location where they're doing the raid, but they don't park right there because then the person might see cars arrive and stuff. And they tend to use undercover unmarked cars. They park like 100 meters away, and then they walk up to the house and they surround the property, and then one person knocks, like the main cop, knocks on the front door, and then there's other ones at the back door and around the property, and there's some probably on the street, and they're waiting to catch the person if the person's going to run when they see the police. And then the reason why this is tricky is that because they do it at 7 a.m, a lot of the time people are asleep, or they're in like or they've just woken up and they're in a daisy, peaceful sort of morning mood, and they're not ready to get raided by cops, basically. You know what I mean? Like, it really is quite a shock, and you're just not in the right frame of mind. Like, I'm more in an awake frame of mind right now, but when you get raided at 7 a.m. in the morning by the police, you're not in the right frame of mind. The police chose a perfect time. Because when they arrested me for my graffiti thing, it was like 7 a.m. When they came and arrested me for it. I just wasn't in the right frame of mind, especially in wintertime when it's still dark at 7 a.m. That's when it's like, whoa, like it really gets you by surprise. And what they do is you're in a half awake state, and they spring you with questions and stuff like that, because they're trying to get information from you and stuff, and you're really in not a good state of mind. It's also a little bit hard to reach a lawyer at that stage, because if you see them and you want to call a lawyer, sometimes the lawyers won't answer their phone and stuff, so 7 a.m. is good timing. Now, what happens is, if it's a really high profile arrest, they'll do it, well, they could do it, depends if the person's in hiding already, they could just do it whenever, but one tactic they do is they do like a 5 a.m. raid, and they do it at 5 a.m. and if it's high profile, they'll rock up and they'll have like a police helicopter, and they'll obviously use more police. And like in that situation, they're probably not even going to knock on the door. They're just going to possibly instantly bust down the door because they want to get as much evidence as possible. That's in more of a high profile one. But yeah, that's just interesting that they do that. They do a 5 a.m. and they bring in like a helicopter and stuff, and yeah, they really take it seriously. Anyway, so I just thought I'd mention that's how it is. And they're looking for evidence of the crime. So they go through the house, and they basically can just go through all of the house, all of the property. They're allowed to. And see, I just remembered another thing. What happens is that before they raid a house, they go to a judge, they're supposed to. They go to a judge, and they ask for I think it's a warrant for arrest or a warrant for a search or something. This is just how our legal system works. I'm letting you know that so you know how this works. So and basically they say to the judge, we're suspicious that this guy has done blah, 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 because we've got this piece of evidence indicating it. Can we please raid his house, or whatever it's called, do a search on his house? And then the judge says yes or no, and if there's like no evidence, the judge might say no, but I reckon if there's no evidence, the judge might still say yes, because the judge might like that policeman that's asking for the search warrant and trust him and know that the policeman's not doing a dodgy or something. So the judge might be like, yeah, okay, cool. And so the judge says you're allowed to search for, I think the judge might mention the locations in the property that they're allowed to search, and the type of items that they're allowed to search for. But what usually happens is that the police request to be able to search as much things as possible, and to be able to seize as much things as possible for their future court case. And sometimes I listened to some videos on cops and stuff, and it was interesting. Sometimes the judges might actually have paperwork signed and it's blank, right, for one of these warrant things. And this is totally dodgy, but it's just what they do. Don't expect them to actually follow the law or their own rules. But they'll have the paperwork signed already, and then the copper will have that paperwork, and then they can just put in the person's name and address and whatever they want after. You know what I mean? It's like it's just really loose, basically. But anyway, and that's what actually I noticed happened with my case, in that, because with my one, they caught me because of the mobile phone thing, but they want to keep that secret because it's sort of a secret that the police are keeping, that they can track everyone's phones when they are switched off. They can track everyone's SIM cards anywhere. And so, like the SIM card pings, the tower pings a SIM card or something like that, and they can always locate SIM cards and stuff. And I think phones without SIM cards in them, and obviously switched on phones and switched off phones. With my case, this is what I noticed when I was investigating it and stuff. It's kind of cool. I got to be like my own little mini lawyer. I honestly think I know enough to be a lawyer, like seriously, like it's just, and it's not, it's really, it's a bit of a joke profession. Like there's a lot more skill in becoming like a carpenter or something like that, you know, and effort. So in my case, what they did is I noticed that there was problems with the dates of the search warrants, and the law is that if there was something dodgy done in the search warrant, then whatever evidence they collected can't be used in the court case. But of course, good luck trying to bring that up to a judge. I mean, it depends on if the judge is on your side or not. If the judge isn't on your side, then the judge will just come up with some reason or some excuse and say, no, that doesn't indicate that, and just walk all over you. So, but in a fair system, it's supposed to be that they're supposed to get the warrant legitimately to search, then rock up to the house and search it and not do any dodgies and stuff. But throughout the whole system, legal system, all these dodgies just continually happen day in, day out. It's just a normal thing that it's just retarded. Anyway, so in my one, I noticed that the judge had signed a search warrant, and then for one day, and then like had obviously seen the paperwork, signed it, blah, 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 and then the next day, I can't remember what it was, but there was a date put in by the policeman and what they were searching for put in by the policeman, and the dates didn't match up. And it basically highlighted that the judge had signed the paperwork prior to the policeman even filling it out, which is incorrect, right? The policeman fills it out, says, we're going to raid Andy's house or whatever, and this is what we want to get. And they go to the judge, and the judge says, approved, you're going to have this warrant, and then signs it and stuff. But it was the other way around. So it indicated that the judge had signed it before, and then the policeman filled it out after the arrest, right? Because, like I said, this is how you do it. You go to the judge and you say, hey, you know, judge, I've got some evidence indicating, because they can't do it without any evidence. But in my case, they didn't have any evidence. You see what I mean? Because they just had the SIM card thing. So they can't bring that up, because that's their secret way of doing it. And they can't let everyone know that they're tracking everyone by SIM cards or whatever. So they couldn't say to the judge, hey, I think Andy did it because we've got the SIM card, blah, blah, blah. They couldn't say that. So what are they going to say? So somehow, probably because they were friends with the judge, and probably they had a judge that was on their side, if you know what I mean, like on their payroll, in their back pocket, they got from the judge already signed paperwork, and then they received it, took it to the house where they were raiding me at, right? And then looked around for what they wanted, and then the next day in the police shop, then they filled out the rest of the search warrant and said, oh yeah, we were looking for this, 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 and this, right? Because now they knew where they were going with this, they could say what they were searching for, right? And so because there was dates that were wrong, and this was just they had so much paperwork to fill out that they just stuffed up on this, because they should have put a fake date on it, but they actually put the real date that they actually filled out the search warrant, and it enabled me to look at it and go, well, this is completely dodgy. This should throw out all their evidence, and and I wanted to push for that, but you know, it's just like, good luck with that. I mean, they were stitching me up, but then I went online and watched videos. And then that's exactly what a copper said. It was like a former copper who was talking about the legal system on YouTube or something. And he was saying that. He was saying, when we're usually in with a judge, we just like get blank search warrants from them and stuff. And then we fill it out after and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, that's what happened in my situation. So this is just normal stuff, and it happens. So I hope you can get the idea that I'm saying, but it's just like when they couldn't use the evidence. Do you see what I mean? And it's kind of like there'll probably be other legal situations where like they know some guy who's a criminal, and they're like, somebody called up and said, look, you know, he's selling guns or something like that. And the person they trust who said that, and they go, shit, well, we don't really have any evidence to ask for a search warrant from the judge, but we bet you there's guns in that guy's house. So then they'll get the blank search warrant from the already signed search warrant from the judge. Then they'll go to the house, and then they'll look, and then they'll fill it out after, or something like that. And also they'll just rock up without a search warrant, actually. And in my situation, basically, because they hadn't filled out the search warrant, it's basically as if they rocked up to my house without a search warrant. And what they did is, this is why they're so clever, because they know what they're doing. It's a lot harder when someone knows the legal system and has been arrested before, because they can catch them out on things. But if it's a person's first time, they're just all scared and they have no idea what's going on. The coppers can just push them around and violate all these laws. But with me is what they did is they said they rocked up at the house, and I didn't even ask for a search warrant because I'd never been arrested before and I didn't know how the system worked or anything. But if I had been arrested before, then they could have been worried that I would ask for a search warrant or something like that, and then they would have had a plan B to go to or something like that. But they didn't have to do that. But what they did is, when they'd search through things and stuff, and you just have to wait in your house. You just have to sit down with them pretty much and wait in the house while they're searching. And it takes them like an hour or 2 hours to search through the house. And it gives them a chance to talk to you more, to get more and more information from you, and to groom you and oil you up into a confession, because that's what they're obsessed with, the confession, because it makes their job so much easier. So what they did is they said to me, oh, well, maybe I'd asked for the search warrant or some paperwork, and they said, oh yeah, great, we're giving it to blah, 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 blah. But they're not. They just said that, but they did it so casually and so believable that I believed them. And then anyway, what happened was that after, they came to my house, like searched the place or whatever, like raided it, or searched it, whatever you want to say. Raid's probably more of a word to imply that if there's all these helicopters in and just all these cops, but a lot do come to your house depending on what it is. But there'll be at least 5 of them, at least 5. So basically they just, when I asked or something like that, they said, oh yeah, we've left the search warrant with your housemate or something like that. Or we've left the search warrant on the kitchen bench or something like that. And then it turned out that when I went to go find it, it never was there. It never existed. Because what are they going to leave? A blank, pre-signed by the judge, blank search warrant on the bench in the house? They're not going to do that. They'll incriminate them. That means I could throw out all the evidence. But they just hope it's some piece of fact that you just forget and that you just don't notice and that sort of stuff. And that's probably why it's good that when you get arrested to just instantly call a lawyer, because the lawyer, if the lawyer is good, the lawyer would know these kinds of things. But a lot of the time lawyers are nerdy type people and goody-goodies, and they don't attack the cops on these sorts of things. They just want to get, they really don't put in much effort. I mean, I haven't heard anyone say anything good about a lawyer. Honestly, I've never heard anyone say, oh, I've heard one person say, this lawyer did a good job and that was it. But I've heard so many people, and I've had so many bad experiences with lawyers. Like, the best lawyer I've had is one that was just like, I would say, like, okay. And that's how I would define him as, just okay. Like, just acceptable, just. Like, so, and then when you talk to a lot of people, they have a lot of terrible stuff to say about lawyers. So just don't expect much from a lawyer, honestly. Like, I just find a lot of the time they don't put in the effort, or, because I had a friend who had experiences with the legal system, and I found his advice was much better, and he was just much more realer and would almost put in more effort. But the lawyers were just like, I don't know, there's just, I don't know if the university system that they go to just brainwashes them into how to practice law, and they go about it in just a crappy way. But I just don't like their product, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people are pissed off and have disagreements with lawyers and get ripped off by them. It's a real common thing. It's an epic thing that goes on. Anyway, so that's what happened with my raid, because that was the very start of my experience with the legal system. Was that day they came in and raided me and stuff. And I think I also mentioned in previous videos that they try and pressure you into pleading guilty, and it sort of depends on how certain they are of what you've done, and they're just in charge, and they can just not let you go until you confess, or they can say, oh, we're going to hold on to your car for ages until you admit to where the evidence is, or something like that. So it's tricky, but yeah, so that's what happened with my one, is that they couldn't, they didn't have the actual proper search warrant paperwork, which means the whole case should have been thrown out of the courtroom. But of course it didn't happen. But that's just how the police operate all the heaps of times. They just do complete dodgies. Because what happened with me is, because my case was high profile, the graffiti was high profile, they assigned their like intelligence department to it. And I'm really not making this up. And their intelligence department has that secret technology where they can access the pinging of the SIM card. Because I doubt your local police can access the pinging of the SIM card. They might be able to access normal telephone records of where the mobile phone is, right? But not this special pinging of the SIM card. You know what I mean? So the police actually said to me when they were interviewing me, they said, look, we've got the record from the telecommunications company, and your phone was switched off between, I don't know, the middle of the night or something like that for 2 hours. And so they didn't, they got the official records, which they could tell me and use, but they couldn't say to me, oh, and by the way, we also have the secret pinging records, and it showed you up in Carlton, and that's how we even knew you did it. They never told me how they actually caught me, and I know that's how they did it, because there's no other way they could have got me. There honestly is. I looked at all the evidence. There's no other way they could have found out I did it. And this is what led them to, because when they initially arrested me, I just thought, how did they find out 10 days, like how did it take within 10 days for them to locate me, you know what I mean, that sort of stuff. How did they know it was me? And I thought maybe they got a car number plate or something like that, but there wasn't anything that would have been that. And the only thing I can think of is what Edward Snowden said, where they can track all phones and SIM cards and everything. And I spoke to somebody when I was in jail, and the guy was telling me about a case years ago where the guy got caught because he had a SIM card, just a SIM card in his car, and they tracked the SIM card. And then Alex Jones even says it on this is why I know I can trust Alex Jones, and I love this experience I had because I know how the world works. Anyway, I listened to Alex Jones. He would say they ping the towers, they ping the mobile phones and stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, Alex. You're completely right. They can track everyone at every time and stuff. Just these secret intelligence departments that have access to this advanced technology that can find out where the pinging of the SIM card is. So this also even connects to COVID, because it means that you can ping a chip, because a SIM card's like a microchip. It means you can locate a microchip anywhere in the world by these towers and stuff. So if they inject you with nanoparticle microchips, they can ping it with a tower, and it's like you're permanently carrying a SIM card around with you at all times, and they'll always know where you are. So anyway, that's why I'm just happy I had this experience, because I know all this sort of stuff now. But back then I didn't know all this sort of stuff, and it's just like, wow, I learned. Now, I just learned so much. The next thing I want to say is, because I've just made all these dot points, and this isn't even in order of my experience of what happened. It's just because I keep on remembering things from different things. The first thing you have to know about your experience with the legal system is that, and with courtrooms in particular, is that lawyers actually aren't even needed. That's the first thing you need to realize. That, like, you could just go there and stand up there and talk to the police and then talk to the judge, and you don't even really need a lawyer. But lawyers come in and say, yes, I'll do that, blah, 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 and they just read the paperwork and they know what the definitions of the legal terms mean and stuff, so they can have a conversation with the judge, right? And it's easier because they sort of know what's going on. But you could just do it yourself. You could talk to the judge, and if the judge, like, the judge might have to just explain some things to you, or the police, and you can work your way through it. And it's really not that hard. Like, unless you're like low IQ or English isn't your first language, you should be able to do it. But the thing you have to realize is that lawyers are not really needed. They're actually kind of like fake work. Like, I'm not kidding. That's what you have to understand, because what they'll do is they'll walk in there and they'll use fancy talk, and they'll wear like a pretty suit and stuff, and they'll make out that they're really doing something, that their work is really special, and they'll take notes, and they'll excessively overdo things. But if you actually sat down and spoke to the lawyer would say, yeah, you don't like really need lawyers. I mean, we're just like an assistant. Do you know what it's like? This is what lawyers are like. You go to a fancy hotel and you rock up at the fancy hotel, right? And the busboy or whatever grabs your luggage and takes it up to your room, and you're like, hey, I can carry that luggage myself to my room. I don't need you. That's what a lawyer is honestly like. So, but it's just that the lawyer's asking for heaps more money than a busboy, and sometimes they fuck you over. So that's what you have to realize when you're getting involved with the legal system. And also, you don't even need a university degree. Like, I could put on a suit and pretend like I've got a law license, right? And go into a courtroom and actually defend someone right now. I'm not even kidding. Because all it is leading up to the court case, you send emails to the other side discussing what's coming up with the court case and stuff. And it's pretty straightforward. And I did this because I defended myself. And then you rock up at the day and you say hi to the police or the police lawyer before the courtroom, when you're outside before it, and then you can fake it. And if you think I'm making this shit up, there's that movie Catch Me If You Can, where the guy was like a 18-year-old kid, and he, put on a suit and pretended like he was a lawyer, and he did it as an airplane, as a pilot as well, except he didn't actually pilot a plane. I think he just walked around the airport and walked around in the pilot's uniform in order to pass bad checks. But he couldn't actually fly a plane, because obviously you'll get caught out. But what he did, well, actually maybe he did pretend to be a pilot, because maybe he could come up with some sort of, I don't know. But anyway, this guy was like a con man in this Catch Me If You Can movie, but he just watched legal movies and then just pretended like he had his law license and stuff, and he got it. No, I don't think he might have got I don't know. Anyway, he pretended to be a lawyer, and he just did it, and he didn't even do a university degree in law. And this is what I'm talking about, because what are lawyers like? They're like the busboy example. You know what I mean? They're not really needed. You can carry the bags yourself. But they're asking for so much money. And what really annoys me about lawyers as well is that they do this thing where they they have the lawyer, then they have the assistant or something like that. This is when they be real fancy. They have the lawyer, then they have the assistant or whatever. That's sort of like does, I don't know, paperwork or whatever. And then they've got a barrister, and the barrister is a person who's good at public speaking, and they talk to the judge. So a lawyer can really suck you in, because you can just think, oh, I'm just going to hire this one lawyer to help me with this thing, and the next minute the lawyer's calling in a barrister and someone else, and it's like a little team, and it's just like, it's a whole sort of fake team, because it's just like, we don't really need this. I mean, I could be doing this myself, and I just wanted you, who I wanted as a lawyer, I wanted you to talk to the judge, I wanted you to be a public speaker, I wanted you to do the paperwork. That's why I was hiring you as a lawyer. Do you see what I mean? I didn't want you to bring in a secretary or whatever, or they call it paralegal or whatever, a paralegal as well. And I didn't want you to bring in a barrister. It's just like, can't you just talk to the judge and stuff? But like, so that's where it can also be where they can, not only is their role not even needed that much, they can then bring in other people, and it's just like, this is how they make the legal system cost so much. This is how they can make a case cost so much, because it's kind of fake work. And you have to be really wary of this stuff. And they also, what they'll do is they'll scare you into thinking you'll need a lawyer as well. They'll do this a lot. Like, you know, somebody's never had experience with the law and they're scared, and the lawyer will be like, this is really, really serious, but the lawyer might know that it's just bullshit, and the guy's probably going to get let off for it, or like, it's not that serious. But the lawyer will be like, yes, it's really, really serious, and they're being a salesman, because they're trying to sign the person up as a legal case. So this is like, whoa. When you know about sales and public relations and salesman talk and stuff, it's just like, and fake work, you got to know about fake work. But anyway, there's a bit of, what I'm trying to say is, there's a bit of fake work to being a lawyer, and so you have to understand that. And so I would recommend, unless you've got some really good lawyer who you can honestly trust, I would recommend being my own lawyer and then consulting a lawyer just for advice on things. But I don't know if I'll just handball your case over to a lawyer and not be aware of what's going on, because a lawyer can just take you to the cleaners. And they can also do the tactic where they take you to the cleaners, which means that they just do as much as they can possible and a bit of fake work, and they draw out the court case as much as possible so they can make more money. Anyway, so back to, I was telling you about the appeal. That's where we're up to in my story, is the appeal. And this was when I was challenging the sentence. So the sentence is a punishment. I thought the punishment was stiff. Because it was, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I got property damage, which I didn't think was appropriate. It got classified as a conviction, and there's conviction and non-conviction, and conviction's like a steep version of it, and I didn't think that as well. And I had the community work, and then I had a men's behaviour course, which is designed for husbands who like beat up their wives, and it's like a training course to stop them from beating up their wife. And that was just so that could get in the media, so they could report on that and say, oh, look how bad he is, he's doing a men's behaviour course. Even though like the judge knew that was completely inappropriate for my sentence. And when I did go to do the actual course and sign up, they rejected me for it and said, you don't qualify for the course. Because they were just like, yeah, that's ridiculous. Like, because they thought the same thing I thought. That's ridiculous. Why is this guy, like, he didn't beat up any woman. Like, what the fuck? So, but the judge knew this. The judge was just throwing it in there so it seemed like a massive sentence, so they could then report on it and be like, oh, look how bad he is, 200 hours community work and men's behaviour course and stuff. And so this is why you see something on the news with someone's case, and you hear the punishments that have been gotten, and there's just all this behind the scene bullshit story to what really happened. So you just have to take things with a grain of salt. They also asked for my DNA, which was bullshit, because that should only be if in like a crime where you rape someone or you murder someone like that. Like, That's just silly. But they've been pushing for the DNA actually quite a lot, and they've really ramped up the police state, and apparently people are even getting asked for DNA for just like minor driving offences. So anyway, but also I want to mention that another reason why I appealed was the fact that I didn't even get a diversion. And what a diversion is like diverting away from the court system or something. And it's like, it's for people who it's the first time they've been in trouble with the law, and it's the best punishment you can ever get, basically. And it's like, it's really light, and it doesn't even go on your criminal record, right? So what, obviously because I was set up with a dodgy lawyer, he didn't ask for a diversion, but I thought it was inappropriate, like annoyed me they didn't ask for a diversion. And the police wouldn't have, they wouldn't have granted me a diversion because what I did was high profile and stuff. But it's like now I know that, but back then I didn't quite know that, and I didn't know how stitched up and controlled the system was and how much bullshit it was. I thought it was much fairer and reasonable, and they had to follow the rules in the book and stuff, and I just didn't realize how ridiculous it was. They can just do what they want, basically. There's so many rules, the judges and the cops and stuff and the lawyers can just do what they want, and they themselves, even though they're supposed to be upholding the law, they break the law all the time. When they're going about punishing, like even when they're going about their legal system to punish someone for breaking the law, they themselves break all these laws. And it started off from day one with the fake search warrant. I mean, so it started off from day one. You see, so it's just like they're the one, like they break the rule, like it's just ridiculous, the whole thing. But also even before that, when they probably found out where I was from pinging my switched off cell phone, that in itself is probably an illegal act, and the intelligence agency somehow had access to the telephone tower records, which are probably supposed to be private, but somehow they legally gained access. So just from day one, they're the ones who are breaking way more laws than me. You know what I mean? Like, it's just ridiculous. I did one act of graffiti, but they're just like, they're a criminal. When you're looking at the police and the legal and justice system, they are the criminals. They seriously break the law more than anyone. It's just ridiculous. It's just a normal routine for them to break the law. Anyway, so I wanted to ask for a diversion. So I thought, that's why I appealed, because I was like, this is just a ridiculous sentence. Everything is wrong about it. This lawyer set me up and stuff and did a dodgy job and didn't even ask for a diversion when I was asking him to ask for a diversion. And also, I had an explanation for why I did the graffiti, and he took it from me and like made out it was going to give it to the judge, and he never gave it to the judge. So he just did all these dodgies and stuff. This is why I knew that he was intentionally doing a bad job, and it wasn't like just a conspiracy theory. I was like, no, he totally was controlling the situation and trying to stuff me up. Anyway, so the judge wouldn't let me ask, when I was doing the appeal, because the judge was on the police payroll secretly, the judge wouldn't let me ask certain questions to the witnesses, because the witness was like the policeman who was there, the groundskeeper of the park, and a guy from the fire brigade. And when I was asking them questions, it was exposing how they had been dodgy in the way that they handled the graffiti. And so when I was asking questions, what the tactic that the judge was using was saying, oh, you can't ask that question, that's inappropriate and stuff. And she was basically trying to keep my questioning as short as possible, and making sure that the questioning didn't help my case, basically. So this is a tactic that they use, because when you've got a court case and you've got a witness, you can't just ask that witness any question. You can't just say, witness, did you used to play baseball when you were a little girl? Like, if that has nothing to do with the court case, you just can't ask it. And the judge or the opposition can say, objection, right? And cut in and say, you can't ask that question, right? And so with my questions that I was asking the counsellor and stuff, I was asking questions that were relevant to the crime. Why the hell would I ask some question about something that's just totally irrelevant? I was asking relevant questions, and the judge was using this shifty tactic, because the judge was against me, and was saying, oh no, sorry, objection, you can't ask that. And the judge knew that I wasn't a lawyer who knew the legal system, all that sort of stuff, and that I'm just a small fry and you could intimidate me and stuff. And so the judge was like, no, you can't ask that, you can't ask that. And that was towards the start. That was in the first hour, I think, or two of the court case. And so that's when I started realizing, you know, oh, this court case is rigged against me. This is a kangaroo court. So yeah, it's just so dodgy, the system and that. I remember the first time I'd ever had really an experience with the police was when I was 22, and I'd been a witness to some gang fight or something, and I went to the police station and they wanted me to make a statement as a witness for their court case. And this was when I was young and naive, and didn't realise how dodgy they were. But they took my statement down, and then they just modified it massively, just to make things easier for the court case and stuff. And I was just like, whoa, I thought these court cases were about finding out the truth of what actually happened that day. And then that was when I sort of realised, like, oh, they just bullshit. So that's why the judge, everyone involved knows it's all bullshit. So the judge is sitting there reading over the case, and the judge knows the details of what's happened in this case are probably bullshit and lies and stuff. And the police had submitted bullshit for the case and stuff, and it's just like, as a fact-finding, truth-finding event, it isn't. It isn't a fact-finding, truth-finding event. It's just some retarded political lawyer theatre. It's just a retarded thing. But yeah, that's when I first was like, whoa, hold on a second. This copper is willing to submit false information into the court case. And it was nothing big. It was nothing that important. Like, the dude probably just got 20 hours community work or a $500 fine for pulling a pole on someone on the street or something like that, because there was some fight or something. And it was just a local police thing. It was just a small fry case, you know. But it was just interesting to see that everyone's supposed to not commit perjury, which means perjury means lying in a court case. So the judge isn't supposed to do it. The police, the prosecution, the lawyers, no one's supposed to lie. But they all do it. It's just normal operation to just bullshit. And just seeing this copper take this statement down and then just commit perjury right there and then and just submit it like it's just normal business and not even hide it from me, like, it's just like, what the hell? It's just like, but anyway, but that was just my introduction to the legal system. That was just like the first thing. But then now years later, this event is just like, whoa, I totally underestimated how corrupt this was. It was just like, whoa, this is crazy. That's why I'd stay away from it, because you just, you know, you don't know what you're going to get hit with. Anyway, so that's one tactic that the judge does. If you're noticing a case that's been set up and is a kangaroo court, look for the judge saying, no, you can't have this witness and you can't enter this information into the courtroom and you can't ask those questions, because the judge isn't on your side, and the judge is trying to make the court case appear like this person is innocent or guilty or whatever they're trying to agenda they have. Another reason I want to mention, the reason I signed up with this dodgy lawyer, because I was suspicious of him from the start, because I can spot a sleazy salesman sort of thing. Like, they have a certain look about them. Like, when they smile, and they use certain words, and like you can just pick up on when they're being shifty. Another one of the reasons why I signed up with him was because he had working with him someone who I used to go to school with. So that kind of made me sort of trust him more. But it was just a coincidence that he was working with this guy at his law firm. But I wish that this dude I went to school with didn't wasn't there, because that definitely helped sign me up, because I kind of thought, oh yeah, this lawyer is going to be my main lawyer, and my friend who used to go to school with, he's going to be like the backup lawyer, and that seems pretty cool and stuff. And so like it just seemed good. And also he said that he got a pedo let off, basically. He said the pedo had 10 charges or something like that, and he got it reduced down to 1 with his brilliant negotiation skills, and then the pedo got let off and beat that. And so I thought, wow, I only have 2 charges, the graffiti and the property damage. And I thought, shit, like if he did this great job on this other case, maybe he could do the same job on my case. And I thought, it's dodgy that he's assisting a pedophile, but I thought maybe this is just how lawyers work. And I also thought, this is where I was tricked. I knew lawyers were scumbags, and they were 1-1s, which means like passive aggressive. So I thought, well, what am I going to do then? I mean, all lawyers are like that, so I'm just going to have to put up with it. Because, I mean, all lawyers are 1-1s, so what am I going to do? You know what I mean? Like, if this was like I was getting a suit made by a tailor or something like that, and he was doing 1-1 behaviour, I would be like, no, I definitely got to stay away from this guy. But if I was going to a lawyer, an industry where I knew that they were all, nearly all, heaps of them were 1-1s, then I'm not as shocked as much when they start being 1-1-y, because I'm just like, well, that's just their profession, that's them. You know what I mean? So anyway, so I thought it was a warning sign that he got a pedo let off, but then I thought maybe it's a sign that he's doing an awesome job. So I thought I'll give it a go, and because he offered for free, I thought, all right, I'll do it. They use the word pro bono, and that's a classic thing as well that lawyers use. It's just, instead of saying for free, they say pro bono. Like, they love to use fancy words because they can control people, and salesmen know this and stuff, and lawyers and politicians know this. And by the way, all politicians are lawyers, in case you didn't know that. We're ruled by lawyers, and all the people implementing this socialism and communism you see in the world, so many of them are lawyers, it's not funny. It's really disgusting, but lawyers are what's wrong with the world, honestly. Anyway, but what's interesting is that when I later found out that he was secretly working for the cops, or an agent or something, this lawyer that I hired, I thought, isn't that interesting that he got a pedo let off? Because I thought maybe he made that story up to sign me up, but my schoolmate backed it up. So I don't know. I don't think he was lying, so I just thought, maybe he really wasn't lying, and that he did get this pedo from 10 charges. He got him let free, because there's a lot of this whole thing of the system protecting pedophiles. And this guy, this lawyer I had, he got a pedo let off, and he couldn't have done it without assistance from maybe a judge or the police or something like that. And so that makes me wonder, this is what's going on. There are lawyers out there and people in the system who are protecting pedophiles. And this guy, this lawyer secretly working for the police, I don't know how, but for whatever reason, he got his orders and it said, get this pedo let off or something like that. And he did it. But it's just interesting because, that's what's going on. That the system is protecting pedophilia, and that's why I guess there's all this talk these days with QAnon and the whole pedophile thing, and there's pedophiles everywhere, and I think that they're a bit obsessed with the whole pedophile thing, but they are right that there is a serious pedophile problem out there, and the system's protecting the pedophiles. And this lawyer that I used was one of the people, a part of the system protecting them. I don't think he was a pedophile personally, but I just think that he received some order and he just went along with it and just protected the pedophile because he was told to, or something like that. Now, I've just got so many points that I'd written down that I'd remembered. So I want to mention this. I should save this for the end of the video, but for the last video I do on this, because I'm probably going to have to go up to like a part 6 or something. But this whole event, I'm not kidding, I actually sat down and calculated roughly how much this whole thing cost the taxpayer. The coming in, arresting me, the court cases, the police time, the going to the community work, because when you go to do the community work, they have to pay someone to supervise the community work, and just everything. I tried to work out everything, and I'm not kidding, I'm not exaggerating, this is the honest truth. It costs the taxpayer about $120,000, the whole thing. That's how fucked up our legal system is. That's where it's a complete joke and a complete rip-off, you see. Because, like I said, it's a lot of fake work, and it's just overblown. Like, they could have just come and looked at the graffiti, right, and said, well, this is going to cost the taxpayer heaps of money and stuff to chase this up, and the court cases and all that sort of stuff. Let's just not do anything about it. And it would have saved $120,000. But they were like, all these people involved in this justice system, it's work for them, it keeps them busy, right? So of course they're going to be chasing up all this crap. And this is where it makes you wonder, where you question the whole legal system, because you go, hold on a second. Is it worth even having this whole legal system when you factor in how much, like, the government steals from you in taxes and then uses that money to pay for the punishment of somebody who's stealing, breaking into people's property and stealing, and it's like, you know what, maybe we should just let the guy break into shit and not even bother, because we're like contributing to it. We're contributing to the stealing in society, basically, and society will probably be better off. And like I was saying in the other videos, you just let the citizens have guns and be free, and they deal with the criminal. They take the criminal out. They don't put up with crap. You know, this is why locations where they have where guns are legal and a lot of people have guns, there's less crime, because the citizens deal with it themselves. But we've got this system that's extremely expensive, like the time for the judges to spend on cases and the lawyers, and then blah, 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 blah. And then the jails are completely overpriced and ridiculous. In Victoria they are, because Victoria is so lefty, so they really look after the criminals in the jail system, and they look after their teeth, and they give them health care, and they give them this and give them that, and it's just, it makes it all so expensive, and it's all just a big money-making operation. But that's what my thing cost, $120,000 to the taxpayer. I just think that's absolutely ridiculous. For jail, it was $400 a day. $400 a day? Like, what the fuck? That's like a 5-star resort or something like that. It's ridiculous. Like, what? That's so expensive, you know? And when I was in there, I was looking at how much things costing and was trying to estimate it. And it's hard to estimate, but they were making a fat profit. And the private company who were running the jail, because it's all privatized and they all make profit off it and stuff, they limit their costs as much as they can. They can make a lot of profit. But when they build the jail in the first place, see, like, if you're going to open up a hotel, for example, and charge people $200 a night, you would have to find the hotel, buy the hotel, put all the stuff in there and that sort of stuff. But these people who run the private jail, I bet you the government pays $1 billion to build the whole jail, right? And they put in, because the jails are expensive to build, because you have to put all the security in, tall walls, the really thick glass. Everything is just super expensive, right? And then after they've got the taxpayer to pay $1 billion to build the jail, then they've got this sweet deal where they get $400 a day as a prisoner. That's so much better than running a hotel. A hotel, you can get like what, $200 a night or whatever, and you don't get the government bloody well paying for your hotel. And this is where it's basically a government scam, jails are. And this is like so many government industries are just like, it's all socialism where the government just can take as much as they can from the taxpayer. It's just such a scam. But it's just ridiculous. So when they sent me to jail, and all up I did about 4 months, it cost $50,000 to the taxpayer. Do you think that's worth it, that time to have me locked up? Like, I mean, I got benefit from it. I'll tell you about it later on. It was pretty awesome. But, like, this is where it's almost like the judge should look at it and go, maybe we shouldn't. Like let's say you got a dude that murdered someone, and they don't always murder someone. It was a really unusual situation or something like that. And you look at it and you go, well, I could send this guy to jail for 20 years and it will cost so much money to the taxpayer. Or we could let him free and he could work and pay taxes. And then we could use his taxes for good purposes. And it's like, should you even send him to jail? Like this is why it's just like, the system is just such a joke. I didn't realize it. I never knew years ago. I mean, all the stuff I say on these videos, 10 years ago, I never would have believed any of these things. And like, I would probably think we're crazy and stuff. But what I'm saying isn't crazy. It's just the truth. But I never would have thought, even just a few years ago, I never would have thought we don't even need the police. But then when I looked at the whole system, I was like, this is just really crap. I didn't even think we need the cops. And then you look back at it, what it was like in the 1880s and stuff, and it was, I think, much smaller, much cheaper, much more efficient, and much more simple. And it wasn't this whole rot on the system, It was probably just one copper in a town with a little office and one little jail cell, and it wasn't all blown out to this ridiculous system. Something I want to mention as well is that, I've got to wrap this video up, but this is the last thing I'll say. The media cherry picks, because this is really important because we see the media do this all the time. The media cherry picks public that they interview on the street. So do you know how like they'll talk about the recent Sydney COVID lockdown, and they'll show someone on the street saying, yeah, I think it's a bit strict that we're going to lock down again. And then they cut to another person. The other person says, I think it's great that we're going to lockdown and we should stay in lockdown for longer. What the media does is, whenever they do those things, when they go to the public and they turn to the public and they show snapshots of the public saying comments, that's cherry picked. It's propaganda. So if they have a public that says, this is crap, and then they go up to another person on the street and ask them, and the person says, this is crap, another person, this is crap, and then one person says, this is good, guess which one they choose for their video report to put in the news? They choose that one where the person said, this is good. So when you're watching the news, you get the idea that the public opinion is that the lockdown is good. But the truth is, the public opinion is that most people think it's bullshit. And this is why these scumbags who work for the media know this behind the scenes. They know they're dodgy. They know they're putting out propaganda and lies, but they just want to get paid and they just go along with it. So with my one, for example, they cut to people in the park and who are walking around the park, and they'd ask maybe 3 people or whatever about my graffiti, and the person was like, yeah, it's bad, and the next person was like, yeah, it's bad, and the next person was like, yeah, it's bad. And I'm not saying the majority was for what I did or anything, but if somebody rocked up and said, oh, actually, I think it's kind of funny, like if they'd asked me about it, like, or some random person with my sort of personality, someone draw a big dick, like someone might say to the camera, I don't care, whatever, or, oh yeah, that's funny, or something like that. those people will not get featured in the media, because what is the mainstream media? It's propaganda. So they're trying to forward an agenda. So every time you watch the news, because they just do this all the time, so much, this is where people don't know that the news is propaganda. This is why you don't know that when they cut to that person on the street who's saying their opinion, that they've edited that so that you're getting a false impression, and the news is biased. It's just biased. It's completely biased, and it's propaganda. Whereas if we were going to do an honest news, you'd show one person saying this, another person saying that, but it's all controlled and edited and cherry picked. So I want to make sure you guys know that, because this is how the fake news works. And when you know these tactics that they use, you can watch the news and you can go, oh, okay. It's kind of like the fake opinion polls, where, like, you know, who you're going to vote for in the election, and they say like Hillary, like 90% Hillary, when the truth is it was like 70% Trump. We're going to vote for Trump. It was just like totally opposite to like 90% Hillary. And then Trump ended up winning the election. And it's like they're using the opinion poll to propagandize the public and make them think that this is what's going to happen. And it's the same when they cut to the public's opinion on the street. They're trying to influence the public's opinion, right? So you can't trust any data. And I guess the truth is with my videos, and when you do, I think, the data evaluators course, your whole opinion of life changes, because you go, yeah, you can't just believe what you hear. What is that true, the statistics that they say in the news? Is that true, the people they've gone to on the street and asked their opinion? Or like, have they been cherry picking that and editing it and stuff? And you find out that we're living in this world where there's just so many lies. And that's actually why, the data evaluators course is one of the reasons why I've sort of left Scientology. Because it wakes you up. It makes you go, whoa, I can see through all this bullshit. Anyway, you just, and this is the problem with people like Chris Shelton and other skeptics, is that they're far too trusting of the data that they get from Wikipedia, governments, dictionaries, scientists, you know, authority figures, politicians. They're far too trusting of the data. I mean, they don't trust anything that Trump says, but all these other ones that are lefties and socialists, they trust it all, and they all think it's all the truth and stuff. And the truth is that they have to realize they're living in a world where there's just chronic bullshit all around. Heaps of dodgy shit going on. Heaps of lies. So anyway, that's it. That's part 4 over. And I've still got a lot more to go. Okay, I've been your host. I barely even got to the appeal in this video. I was just mentioning I've still got heaps of notes. It's just like, I'm just looking at it now. It's like, whoa. Got all these things I've got to say on top of the actual story. Anyway, I've been your host, Andy Nolch, the Space Cowboy. You've been listening to the Indie Scientology podcast. So remember, what you thought was impossible is possible.